what's this? Out for a stroll then? Lovely day for it.
Hi, this is Oli Welsh from Eurogamer, and this is The Elder Scrolls Online. Last weekend, I got to try out the beta version of Bethesda's new massively multiplayer game, along with Ian and our glorious leader, Tom Bramwell. This is Ian's character you're watching at the moment. Like Tom, he chose to create a giant cat person because that's not weird at all. You'll get to see my wood elf and his amazing 90s haircut a bit later on in the video. As you'll know if you've been following The Elder Scrolls Online, this is Bethesda's attempt, the latest in a long line of such attempts, to take on World of Warcraft at its own game. It takes the Elder Scrolls fantasy world, which was made popular by Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, and opens it up to hundreds of players at a time. It's out in April for PC and Mac, and in June for Xbox One and PS4. You start out by picking a race and a faction. There are 3 factions, which have very important sounding fantasy names like the Ebonheart Pact. But I'm going to call them the Tree Huggers, the Scrappy Upstarts, and the Bad Guys. You'll need to be in the same alliance as your friends if you want to play together.
Help me. I can't take this anymore.
To accommodate Ian and Tom's pervy furry leanings then, we chose the tree-hugging Old Mary Dominion. Each of the 3 factions has a different section of the game's vast map to explore and quest lines that are completely unique to them. They can also all fight each other for control of the central portion of the world map, although we didn't get to try that PvP mode last weekend. This means that if you want to see all of the game, you're going to have to play it all the way through with 3 separate characters at least, and that is going to take a really long time. Leveling in The Elder Scrolls Online is slow, and I mean slow. It took me around 20 hours of play just to get to level 13. I was still only in the second zone, and I felt like I was still playing in the shadows. I've got some thoughts about why the game is so slow paced, which I explore in detail in an article on the site. But in short, I think it's because the questing in this game is a little different to what you're used to in an MMO. To the credit of the developer ZeniMax Online Studios, they've listened to players' concerns that The Elder Scrolls Online was initially looking a little bit too much like Warcraft, and they've structured it more like Skyrim. This means virtually no quests where you have to just go out and grind your way through a bunch of monsters. Instead, you get lots of exploration and lots of long, talky, story-heavy quest lines with only occasional bouts of killing. While this works fine in a game with a very flat progression like Skyrim, I don't think it works so well in the traditional MMO style, which Elder Scrolls is borrowing from WoW and the like, which is very focused on progress. Still, you can't deny that the sheer quantity of content there is to explore is amazing, and it is fun to do it in a living world with other players running around, or I think so anyway. When playing the game, you can feel the developers constantly trying to find a happy medium between what you expect an MMO to be and what you expect an Elder Scrolls game to be. They don't always manage it, but to be fair, it's a lot more like an Elder Scrolls game than I was expecting. The traditional Elder Scrolls first-person viewpoint you can see Ian using here works very well. As a WoW player, I felt more comfortable playing in third person, and that was just as good. The game's interface is pretty slick, although perhaps a little bit too stripped back. I found myself really missing a mini-map in particular. I also quite like the role-playing system, which is unusually freeform for an MMO. Although you do choose one of 4 character classes, you're given a lot of freedom in terms of what equipment you use. The weapons and the armour you choose to equip, as well as the good old guild quests, which will be familiar to all Elder Scrolls fans, open up a lot of additional skill trees, and these can take your character in a lot of different directions. For example, I turned my rogue-style Nightblade into more of a ranger type by focusing on his bow skills. Inevitably, though, there is less freedom in The Elder Scrolls Online than there is in Skyrim. This is not a game in which you can fill a house with stolen cheese. That might turn some fans off, but there are compensations to it being an online game. Tom, Ian and I had a great time teaming up with some randoms we met on the road to take down one of the Oblivion anchors that the evil Daedra, whatever they're called, are using to invade the world.
destroyed my Welsh, his minions will not be so easily defeated.
There's loads of multiplayer content too. There's public dungeons anyone can wander into, private ones for your party, and elite monsters to fight out in the world, even at the quite early levels. However, the game doesn't do such a good job of throwing players together, certainly not as good a job as something like Guild Wars 2. Also, if playing with friends, you will need to stick close together. The game is so story focused and the quest lines are so long that it's easy to end up out of sync and playing different stages of a quest to your buddy, which is one way in which it felt like it was structured more like a single player game than a multiplayer game. It is, however, a good idea to play with a friend because the game can get quite tough, a little too tough I think. At this stage of the beta, the balance of some of the combat and some of the economy seems a bit off to me. By level 12, I couldn't keep up with my equipment repair bills, which can't be right. Or maybe I'm just rubbish. I've got to admit that The Elder Scrolls Online takes itself a bit too seriously for my liking. As fantasy goes, it's pretty straight-laced, pretty po-faced. But if you're a fan of the series, I would cautiously recommend checking it out. If you're after a new MMO to play, I'd be more wary. Make sure you've got friends to play with, remember there's a subscription to pay, and get ready for a very long haul. It's a decent game, and obviously a massive one, but so was Star Wars The Old Republic. And look how that worked out. Well, that's it from me. For more on Elder Scrolls Online, as well as a ton of exclusive footage and previews and other video game video goodness, give us a subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
The Malari Mora no longer binds me here, free of the curse.